Hey, what's up guys? It's Rick with the Digital Divide, and today we're going to go on another thrifting adventure. We had some amazing weather over the weekend, so I decided to go both Saturday and Sunday to see what treasures I could find out in the wild. You know, these videos don't get a ton of views, but they're some of my favorite to make. If you love thrifting and you make it to the end of this video, please leave a comment. And if you're new to the channel, what am I looking for when I go thrifting? Well, I'm looking for retro video games and consoles, vintage toys and figures, comic books, the older the better, vinyl records, computer components, collectibles, and anything that makes me nostalgic from my past. So on day one, I decided to go all the way to West Virginia to see what I can find. Kind of drive out in the middle of nowhere here. My buddy has a bunch of property. He has a couple of acres in West Virginia, and we decided to go set up some targets and shoot on his property. And while I was out there, I figured I'd go thrifting. The first place I stopped on the way to the flea market was a yard sale, and this person had a ton of toys and pop figures. They had these Ninja Turtles, but I could tell just by looking at these that these are relatively modern. These are not the original ones from the 80s and 90s. They had a ton of pop figures here, although all of these were mostly overpriced. I don't really go out of my way to collect pop figures, but when I find them while thrifting, if it's cheap and it's a cool figure, I'll pick it up. This Batman one was pretty cool. The Stormtrooper was awesome looking. So she definitely had some cool stuff here. This, though, is the coolest looking pop set I have seen. It's a Darth Vader Star Wars set. And I totally meant to come back after I left the flea market to pick that up and make an offer if it was still there, but I completely forgot. Anyways, moving on to the actual flea market, this was the destination all along. It's at the Raritan National Club, and they had a bunch of vendors set up outside. This is what I drove down here for, and we'll see what treasures we can find. So the first booth I stopped at had some video games, but these were Xbox One and PlayStation 4 generation games, which I don't collect actively because a lot of these don't even have the game on the disc. It's just a key to download the game. And then if it does have the game on the disc, it's going to be outdated. The next table I stopped at had a bunch of live parrots that they were selling. These were $150 a pop. It was so cool to see these. You don't see them often. All three of these guys were already sold though. And then I found some DC stuff, some Scarecrow figures, and I found this Wayne Industries watch, which I was tempted to pick up, but it looked fairly cheap, so I passed on that. They also had a couple of Batmobiles, although the windshield's kind of popping out of this one. They have the tumbler from the Christopher Nolan movies, but I'm not a huge fan of that design. And then moving on, we have some Halloween stuff, Pokemon costume for boys, as well as a Crypt Keeper, although that doesn't look like much of a Crypt Keeper. Moving on, I found this weird Drop Squad, the Escape board game, which I've never heard of, so passed on that. Moving on, the next table had a bunch of complete cards from the 80s and 70s, specifically Star Wars. This pack here was from the 1983 Star Wars set. This is a complete collection here from, I believe, 1980, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 1980, Empire Strikes Back. And he had a bunch of complete Star Wars sets ranging from 1977 to 1983. So I ended up picking up some of these because I'm definitely interested in getting back into collecting these. This bag in particular is hard to find complete from 1983. Moving on to his other table, he had these stickers from Empire Strikes Back, some Elvis cards. And then I found these Gremlin cards. These are really cool to see from 1984, I believe. He had the entire set there, so I picked that up as well. The next booth had a bunch of cars. I don't know why. A lot of people like to collect NASCAR stuff. This is something you don't see every while. Santa Claus in a decked out hot rod of some sort. The next booth had a bunch of old wartime trinkets and political buttons and what have you here. Just nothing that I'm interested in. After I left that flea market, I found a garage sale on the way to my next destination, so I figured I'd stop by here. They had this really cool Werewolf Tales book with a little claw coming out of it, and then I found this. It's called In a Dark, Dark Room and Other Scary Stories, written by Alvin Schwartz, and I used to read this as a kid, so I have a lot of nostalgia for this book. So moving on, I decided to check out the local Goodwill because I've never been here before, so I wanted to see if I could find any cool old vintage electronics. I found this New York Giants toaster, because reasons, I guess. Not something that I'm into, but I'm looking for old video game stuff, and all I'm seeing is old like DVD players and what have you. Here's an old PC controller. It's a generic brand, super cheap looking, zero interest in that. Didn't end up finding much of anything here. These Creative Lab speakers down here are actually fairly nice computer speakers from back in the day, but it's missing the subwoofer that's supposed to come with it, so not something I want to buy incomplete. Moving over to the toy section, I found this. Mr. Pickle, and I don't know, there's something wrong with me, but I have to have this. There's no way I'm leaving that behind. Moving on, I found some games, specifically some in-the-box complete PlayStation 1 games, which is something you don't find a lot at Goodwill's. I found a copy of Cool Borders 2 complete in the box. They also had The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which I already own on PC, but I believe this comes with a free PS5 upgrade. Next to that, they had a box of comic books, which is super uncommon for Goodwill. Now, on the way out, I found these brand new in-the-box hand sanitizer stands. They were like $3 each, which is insanely cheap. Moving on, I'm heading over to Memory Lane Antiques and Collectibles. This is right down the street from where I live. As soon as I walked in, I found a box of vinyls. Here's a record called Dr. Schwago. The guy on it looks super creepy. Never heard of this before. Not interested. Here's a B plush for some reason. Here's a couple more vinyls. Nothing I'm interested in. I'm looking for like vintage rock and roll stuff like AC/DC. Then I found this Thor book and some Star Wars books, but these are clearly made for little kids, not something I'm interested in. Charlotte's Web, I remember reading when I was a kid. Then I found this KB Toys Nintendo 64 display case. I really want to reach out to the owner and ask him if he's interested in selling this, because it would be so cool to have. But he's filled it up with a bunch of old Batman toys and various like loose collectibles, some wrestling stuff up here, some Star Trek stuff. Which was tempting, but passed on that. Some Lego Thor things and a couple of loose video games in the back there. And this guy's also got a PlayStation kiosk, but it's not complete. It's missing something at the top there, so I'm not interested in that. And then this Indiana Jones playset was kind of cool to see. These Star Wars figures I do collect, but I'm flipping through here, and he doesn't have anything that I'm really looking for. I'm looking for a Darth Maul in good condition currently. A lot of these I already own, but didn't end up picking up any of these. Moving on, there's this really cool Joker like playset. It's like a whole theme park playset for Joker, which is kind of neat to see. And then I found some NASCAR trading cards. I don't get it. I'm not into that, so not for me. But I also found a bunch of comic books. There's a stack of loose books here, and then there's some graded books underneath. So I had them bring the key over, and I sifted through all of those. They also had some Spider-Man and Superman figures over here. Moving on, there's more comic books. I don't know why this guy puts them in this rotating display, because it just ends up bending the books and ruining the spine on them. He should know better as a vendor, but there wasn't much in here worth picking up anyways, so it didn't really matter to me. Moving on, I found this Mario plush that I happen to already own, that exact one, and then I found this really cool Dungeons and Dragons metal set. It came with a beholder in the middle, which I don't have, so definitely something that I'm interested in picking up if the price is right. And they had a couple of other figures in the back there. Some Star Wars stuff, this really cool TIE Fighter, and this Rocket Raccoon, and a bunch of other stuff. They had this old Bugs Bunny toy, but it was missing the ears, but this is from 1962, which is really cool to see, as well as some old gumball machines. I recently picked up a gumball machine to put in my game room. It doesn't look like this, though. It looks like your more traditional gumball machine. These look much older. Moving on, I found this Fire Chief playset. This looks to be super old, from maybe the 50s or 60s. They're made out of like cast metal. And then I found some Halloween stuff, which makes me super happy because it's my favorite time of the year. So I'm all over that. And then I found this Star Trek Borg ship, which was super tempting. It's not the cube, it's the sphere. So I ended up passing on that. I really want the cube. Next, I'm stopping by the Salvation Army for one specific reason, and that's because they recently got a bunch of new display cases. They've had the little ones up top here for $1 a pop, and I own several of these, but they recently got the bigger ones below, and these are only $1.50 a pop, and they're big enough to hold 3 different Mighty Max sets at once. So this is what they look like in the set. As I said, you can fit about three figures in each one, and they stack up on top of each other too. So this is what I'm currently using to display my Mighty Max stuff that I have so far. On my second day of thrifting, I decided to stop by 1884 Market House. This is in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania. They've got this cool truck outside. I doubt that it runs, otherwise it wouldn't just be sitting there. But as soon as you walk in, they have a bunch of really cool stuff. They have a Boba Fett bust here and some X-Men stuff, some Transformers stuff, this really cool Harley Quinn figure that I almost picked up, and I asked them to open up the case, and it was super cheap feeling. It weighed like nothing. It was not worth the $35 they were asking me. They had an Emperor Palpatine bust and some other Star Wars stuff, some Nintendo games, Minecraft stuff, just a lot of cool stuff right off the bat as soon as you walk into this place. Moving on, I found a bunch of Pokemon cards, and a lot of these were graded. And I don't own any graded cards yet. I own a lot of graded comic books, but I was super tempted to pick up the Charizard card here. That is the unevolved Charizard, but it was too low a grade at a 6.5 to justify the cost. This next room, though, had an overwhelming number of things in it that were awesome. A bunch of old video game controllers, these Xbox controllers, Xbox 360. I was looking for like Sega Saturn accessories that I could pick up, but they didn't have any there. They did have this Wii Pro controller and a bunch of just loose stuff. Most of these were the official OEM version of the controllers, although this one looks to be a third-party one because there's no X in the center. But they had a bunch of really cool stuff in this room. A lot of video game stuff, a ton of toys, just a huge variety. They even had some consoles. They had this Wii up here. They had the Sega Genesis. I think this is the original, the Model 1 Genesis up here. They've got an Xbox 360. I already own all of these consoles, so I didn't need to pick up any of those. But, I mean, they just had a ton of stuff here. They had a bunch of guitars from Guitar Hero. They had bins of just Star Wars toys, so I did sift through all of these. Most of them, though, I already had or am not looking for. And then they had some Star Wars figures up here and some pop figures and just all kinds of good stuff. I spent the most time in this room, I think, and I ended up picking up a few things. Here's a cool George R.R. Martin, the writer of the Game of Thrones TV show and the books. And then they had more figures down here, and I sifted through everything in this room. I probably spent a good hour and a half in this room alone, specifically looking at the video games, which you can see over here. They had bins and bins and bins full of video game things and tiny little figures. And I mean, this is just heaven if you're into this kind of thing. But yeah, if you pull out these drawers, they just had a ton of Xbox 360 stuff and a bunch of PlayStation 1 stuff complete in the box, which you don't see too often. I ended up picking up a few things here. But yeah, this room was just epic. And like I said before, it was almost overwhelming how much stuff they had in this room. Moving on to the next room, they had this really cool Bowser figure and a bunch of Nintendo DS and Genesis games, a couple of Wii games, a bunch of Transformer stuff here. This Transformer in the box was tempting, although a bit pricey, and they had a lot more Transformer stuff. This Optimus Prime here was fairly tempting, although I am running out of space to display collectibles at this point. It was only $15. I probably should have picked it up, but I didn't feel like going all the way to the front desk to ask somebody for a key. And on the next booth, I found some mostly complete Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 1988. They had all four plus Splinter, roughly $25 a pop. In hindsight, I regret not getting those. I think I might go back this weekend and pick those up. And then this booth adjacent to it had just a ton of pop figures, which was cool to see, and a bunch of loose, action figures from the 70s and 80s and some wrestling stuff, which I could care less about. Moving over inside here, you can just see the overwhelming amount of toys and trinkets and just awesomeness in here. A bunch of Turtles stuff, a bunch of Skylanders toys, some Playmation stuff, another Bowser Amiibo, which is cool, and just all kinds of awesome stuff. So I spent a lot of time looking through all this stuff. Here's a T-Rex from Jurassic Park, some model cars, and I found this. I didn't even know these existed. Ninja Turtle Star Trek figures. I had no idea that these even existed until today. They had, it looks like Donatello and Leonardo. And then they had some Micro Machines Star Trek stuff. I own a few of these, which is cool to see. Moving upstairs, there's a really cool feature if you go up to their top floor. This particular antique store has 3 different stories, and at the top floor, they have like a transparent glass floor. They call it a skywalk, and you can look down and see below to the other levels of the antique shop, which I thought was kind of cool. Moving on, I found some Budweiser and just beer signage, which would be cool if you owned a bar or something like that, or a liquor store. You could hang that up. They had a signed jersey here, some sports cards in the boxes. Moving on to the other room, they have some genuine antiques. This old horse here, which would be cool if you have kids. A Coca-Cola phone. This booth had a lot of weird phones. A Coca-Cola phone, a shoe phone, a car phone, just all kinds of phones. I guess this person is into phone things, and this Mickey Mouse one was kind of cool. I remember that when I was younger, seeing it at the stores. And then they had this Elvis Pez set. So let's take a look at my haul. I got a lot of stuff over Saturday and Sunday, and this is everything that I ended up picking up. So this is my haul from Saturday. As you can see, I got a bunch of stuff here. I got like an entire box full of these display cases, and again, they're perfect for displaying Mighty Max sets or other toys or collectibles. So I got a ton of those because they're only $1.50 each. They need a good cleaning, but otherwise they're great. I got 3 of these Moxie touchless hand sanitizers that come with a stand. These were half off, so I paid $1.50 each. And then I picked up Reign of Fire on the PlayStation 2. I also got The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt on PS4. I picked up NASCAR 2002 and Cool Borders 2 for the PlayStation 1. Picked up this Echo Dot. It was only $7, and this thing sells for like $40. So I grabbed this Dungeons and Dragons set specifically because I wanted that Beholder. And then I picked up several complete sets. This one is the Superman 2 set of cards. This is from Gremlins, the movie, so I picked both of these up. These are both complete, and then I have this 1977 Star Wars card set. I picked that up as well, and then this is a book that I had from my childhood. I picked up just because it gives me a lot of nostalgia. I got this random pumpkin for decoration, and then I picked up one of these as well. This comes in handy when you're troubleshooting or if you're migrating data. This is a SATA hard drive reader enclosure, so you plug it into your computer and then you just plop in your hard drive and it lets you access the data. This is another complete card set I got from 1983 from Star Wars. And then I got a couple of comic books. I picked up this old 15-cent horror comic book from Marvel called Tower of Shadows. This was $15. It was just super cool. I love the cover on that one. And then I picked up this Spider-Man book because I'm looking to complete the entire run for the 90s set. And then I picked up Brigade number 1. This is normally a book that I would not pick up because it's not something I collect, but it's in perfect condition and it has the collectible trading cards inside. So why not? For $2, I'll pick it up. It looks like a 9.8 contender. Worth adding to the collection just because of the condition. So this is my haul from Sunday, and I didn't get quite as much, but I got a lot more video game stuff. And I also picked up a few comic books. I got this Donatello number 1 from 1989. This was his own limited series. I picked up a couple of Amazing Spider-Man books just because any Spider-Man book I'm going to pick up if it's reasonably priced. I picked up this King Deadpool Pop. Now this sells online for like $30 to $40. I got it for $15. So I'll definitely add that to the collection. I picked up a copy of Blast Corps for the Nintendo 64. I picked up a copy of Rippin' Riders for the Dreamcast, Harry Potter for the PlayStation 2, Iron Man, Turok Evolution, Twisted Metal Black, Max Payne 2, and Marvel Ultimate Alliance for the PlayStation 2. I also picked up this Darkstone for PlayStation 1, which I've never heard of, but it looks super interesting. And then I picked up Fighting Force 2 in the box. That's an awesome game. Picked up Siphon Filter number 1, and then Battle Chess for the original Nintendo made by Data East. It's my favorite chess game ever made. I picked up a handful of original Xbox One games as well. I still need to make reproduction cases for these since they're all loose. As always, thanks for watching. Have a great day.